Hello, hello, hello. Hey, Brent, how you doing? Are we here? Are we live? Well, I can't hear you. It was a weird thing. I can't hear you for some weird reason.
All
Yeah.
right.
Oh, no, you're good.
There
There
we
you go.
go. There we go.
How you
Well,
doing,
hey,
man?
Yoris.
Yeah,
How's it going, man? Happy
good,
Thanksgiving.
good.
You're eating your turkey, your yams,
No,
all
no,
that stuff. Yeah.
no, none of that. Sorry. I'm having a lasagna. Sorry.
Oh, that's the pre meal. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I'm just gonna make sure that we're live on LinkedIn here. I think we are.
I think so too.
I was trying something a little different. Doo-doo. Okay. Yep. We are live, Yours.
All right.
So,
How you doing?
hey, doing all right. I know this was kind of random, but I was like, you know
Mm-hmm,
what? Everybody else is celebrating Thanksgiving and not
mm-hmm.
going LinkedIn Live. So I was like, well, why not us?
Okay,
So
okay.
nobody else is doing it. Here we
Mm-hmm,
are. And
okay.
today here in the US is the idea of giving thanks. And I thought that
Mm-hmm,
it would be very interesting to just not only give thanks to the people that have listened to us along the way,
mm-hmm,
some of our sponsors, and then
mm-hmm.
just reflect a little bit. We have 72 episodes under our belt. We're
Uh-huh,
getting
uh-huh.
ready to go into our new season. We've actually recorded over half of the new season, and that hasn't been released yet. And I'm really excited about the future. So um, that's what this is about. Is just thank you for those that listen, the sponsors, and then maybe we can give some shout outs as well.
Okay, that's good. That's a good idea, man. I'd like to give thanks to all the innovators out there, all the people inventing things, making things happen, especially people like at home. They're just doing this out of like a spirit to tinker and stuff. I think a lot of stuff bubbles up from those guys, and also guys, girls, I'd say. And also, we're getting a lot of like improvements to desktop printers because of that. All right now, now you can buy a printer now that kind of works, and you can kind of invent stuff. You can kind of make stuff at home, and that's because there's like a million people buying these things every year, and they do use them at home. So that is, I think it's wonderful. I don't think we often we don't give enough thanks to people like that who are just making this whole revolution evolution thing happen.
Well, and I think to go along with that, the desktop community, they're also very generous with their information. So,
Hmm.
some of these printer companies like the Crealities, the Bamboo stuff,
Hmm.
and some of these other ones have massive followings on Facebook. I don't know about LinkedIn, but Facebook user groups where people share their knowledge that they have, literally blood, sweat, and tears, and you can go over here and save yourself 4 days of working on a printer because one guy gave some information. And I think that really also speaks to a lot of things in additive manufacturing, but also in orthotics and prosthetics has historically been very siloed, and we've kind of found that out over the
Hmm.
podcast. Is my intellectual property is mine, but what happens when you go away, you retire, you
Hmm.
die, what have you? All that knowledge is lost. And so
Hmm.
what I'm thankful for is yes, the innovators, but the innovators that are have some gray hairs on their head, and they're now leaving a legacy into the digital world with their
Hmm.
vast experience, 40 plus years of experience. And I think that's fantastic.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good point. That through digital, even like the vestiges of this, even like the Thingiverse files or whatever, or through some kind of like files or ideas or courses that propagate, you can really leave a legacy. It's a good idea. I've never really thought about it this way. It's a really interesting way of looking at it and saying you can design a part and you can put your embodied effort and intelligence and your experience in that part, and that could live on for many decades. So,
Well, and I
uh,
think that I think that's interesting too. And the people, so you have the innovators and such, and even some of the people coming out of school, they're younger, but they're in residency.
mhm,
They're not making a lot of money; they're just getting
mhm,
started. So So who has the ability really to move the needle specifically in O&P? It's the older clinicians that have money
Mhm,
or own
mhm,
clinics,
mhm,
and they also have that experience. And that combination, if you push into
mhm,
digital, it's like a cheat code or something that you could leverage big time because both of these
mhm,
worlds collide, and they can actually afford to do some of the stuff that we dream of, right? And it's not doesn't just have to
mhm,
be
mhm, mhm.
on a small desktop printer. So I think that's really interesting as well.
Yeah, totally, totally. I think that those are the things I'm most thankful for. Like more than I like this bubbling up innovation. There's kind of small groups of people individually and individual inventors. Somebody somewhere invents something, her thing is then passed around to people. I think that kind of connectedness and that connective tissue that we have to build is the key thing to enable the future, and that sharing and sharing in whatever way is something we should encourage. And that's the key thing that I'm really grateful we have this, and I'm curious to see how long we'll have this, or if this will always be a feature of our market, or if this will just gradually disappear.
Yeah. Well, and uh, I am super thankful for your last series of articles. They were very, very
Oh goodness, yeah,
insightful,
yeah,
especially this last one that you did. And I'd love for you to just
yeah,
dive in a little bit. I think what
yeah,
struck me the most is
yeah.
your conversation about the big companies almost like stifling innovation,
Hmm.
right? So the
Yeah.
innovation belongs to those that are passionate. Once these
Hmm.
companies get bought up or
Hmm.
what have you, some of that passion
Yeah.
goes away and the innovation goes away. And
Hmm.
the other thing that you mentioned was they're always looking for the best price, right? So they
Hmm.
are going
Hmm.
to try to bottom of the barrel
Hmm.
buy innovative companies and then a lot of times kill them. Whereas if you look at some of these, you kind of build your tribe. And I see that very
Hmm.
much in O&P. It's the people that like what you're doing, like your
Hmm.
product, and that they'll pay
Hmm.
a premium for it. It's not, and that's the bottom line is you find those people and
Hmm.
you can have a lot of success in that niche. Let the Nikes and the uh, Reeboks and all those companies have their fun, drive the
Hmm.
price way down, but go find these niche type of companies.
Hmm.
And I forget the examples that you used, but
Hmm.
small mid market people, but they
Hmm.
actually appreciate the talent and the passion and will pay a fair price for it.
No, thanks. I mean, the idea of the RIP 3D printing articles is just the idea that, like, I took a look and I looked at all the data as well. This isn't just some fanciful thing that I'm doing. Um, uh, I looked at all I do like surveys among users and all this kind of. Looked at a composite of this, and I concluded that we're living on investor cash essentially. There's very few companies in 3D printing that are actually making money, and a lot of the money that is going into new developments and stuff, and also paying people like me, is coming from investors. Now, with that kind of drying up right around now, you can still get a startup funded, but you're going to have to do extraordinarily a good job of making that startup, or being a good presenter, or a person with a track record to make that happen. And whereas like a couple of years ago, they were just throwing money at anyone with half an idea, and it was crazy. Um, so in that context, is how do we get money? How do we develop a business? And my conclusion is we should use the technology to enable applications. So what we should do is make our own shoes, or make our own hats, or do whatever it is to actually make a product that actually works. And that is, the old way was we get investor money, we turn that into a prototype, we turn that into a machine, then we have to try and sell the machine, then we have to try and make it better. And especially in the metal side, you really notice it. There's only very few companies that are going to have risk of several $1 million implementing like a metal printing solution. And all the other companies in the world are either too small, or they don't need to do this, or they'll never do this, or they'll just wait until we mature or get cheaper. So we're not going to move the needle with those guys. And the idea really of the article is like, but it's much faster to sell people a hat and a 3D printed hat, and to just put that on the market. And theoretically, if we can have this technology that's really fast at making things and customizing things, we should be able to make lots and lots of things really, really quickly and fail often. And then maybe at one point it'll work. So that's kind of the gist of the articles. And the idea that that third one, there's actually a fourth one. The third series was essentially that idea that if you're going to approach companies, my experience on this business development side of things is this, that I know a lot of people that have been talking to some really big shoe companies and car companies for a really long time. And you know what? I'm not saying large companies can't innovate, but they innovate in a completely different way. They do like a systems and process driven innovation, like making an electric car or something like that. But even, they do like, they made larger things to move the needle. They're not going to take a lot of smaller risky bets, and they're not going to like do the riskiest stuff. But a small to medium business where Sarah Johnson is the owner of Johnson Shoes and also the CEO, you talk to Sarah, Sarah's like, yes, let's do this. And boom, right? You're off to the races. So I think it's not necessarily that large companies can't innovate, but if you really want risky, fast innovations that make sense, then small companies is the way to go, especially in 3D printing, like where the shoe companies go. It's not that shoe companies don't want to 3D print shoes. It's that it doesn't fit in their procurement system, which is this really big supply chain process, essentially, that kind of swallows up the business. And it just doesn't work together with that. Right. The best example of this is Zara or Inditex, right? They can invent something and 8 days later it's in stores, at least across Europe. They can then track the sales and then re-up in 3 days. Other companies are still making clothes and trying to predict 12 months in advance where the demand will be. How many green sweaters are going to be sold in size X in Denmark 24 months from now? Now, especially nowadays with the economy being all crazy, that's more difficult. But these guys have been known for over a decade now what Inditex and Zara is doing, and they still haven't adapted because they're kind of like slaves to that system they're in.
Yeah.
So I think that's the same with big companies. They just need a lot to move the needle, so they need to like move course. And coursing correct this giant cruise ship of a business is really difficult.
Well, and I think the other thing that's very interesting, and I think it's very applicable, and you kind of touch on it in your articles, and you would have to just know you and what you write about too, the context. But a lot of that thread is find a product, don't go buy a machine and then try to make a product on the machine. And I think that is so important, like in the orthotic and prosthetic space. And I've talked to probably 4 or 5 people within the last month, and they just want to buy a machine, but they have zero idea on the designing. So, but they're willing to go out and spend $500,000, $750,000 on a machine, but they won't invest $100,000 in training somebody or developing somebody or contracting somebody to create the idea that goes on the machine. And so I think that's the other part that weaves through your articles that I find fascinating is really the development is not on the machines or the hardware. Yes, some in the materials. It's really how are you going to get the most out of the materials and the design together.
Yeah, I think the thing that ties in, it's nice that you picked it up. Maybe I think for other people, I maybe should need this to make this a little bit more explicit. But if you set off with a certain polymer family or metal family or a certain machine, and you want to try and find an application to fit that thing, then you're basically going about the problem in the wrong, or you risk going about the problem in the wrong way. In essence, trying to find what is best suited for your system, but maybe it doesn't work for the client, right? So if you just are more open-minded or able to be more open-minded and then pick the thing, you might find out that another technology is better. Or you might find out that, yes, you want a machine. It's really cool to have a machine. But hey, some of us have servers and some of us rent servers for the internet, and some of us have no idea how the servers work, but somehow there's a website and we have no idea how that works in the head. But our businesses are completely dependent on that internet virtual world now. And I guess some people would have to invest in servers, right? And I guess if we were doing like a Google, then we would have servers, or Microsoft or whatever. But I don't think an OMP company, even like a giant one, should really necessarily have their own servers, right? That's a decision, but that's not where they can win. And so the same thing I would say to a lot of people, like typically people buy machines too early and they underutilize them, which really undermines the business case. And I think you should leave it up to specialists. I think I think you should design it. If you design an application, you check the volume, and then it turns out that it makes a ton of sense for you to buy a machine. Okay, cool. But sometimes, like for example, we talked to some people that were really buying using a lot of 3D printed components in their O&P designs, but they don't own machines. Right, the guys making the hand models or the finger things, they just rely on 3D systems to do the metal printing for them.
Yeah.
Right, because they decided we're going to design this stuff. That's where our experience lies, and 3D systems are going to print those things because that's what they their effort makes sense.
Yeah, well, and I think you go in there, and that's a great example. Is that if for whatever reason a company like Point Designs or whatever was approached by a bigger company, do you think that bigger company cares whether they have metal machines or not? No. What they want is the intellectual property of how those are created and the recipes around it, and then the business case for it. It's not it's not a make or break deal whether you have a machine or not.
Depends. And maybe they would make sense for that larger company to vertically integrate and to use its muscle to buy more machines and automation and to really push down that price point, right?
Right.
But only if the volume is there, right? So I think that's a really important thing to consider, I think.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, so we've had 72 episodes on the Prosthetics and Orthotics podcast, right?
Yep.
What are some things that just stick out? I know we can dive into the weeds. Let's say a top 3 of things that just stick out to you that are a little bit surprising to you, and maybe is there something to solve, or it's just something to think about?
I think one is there's a lot of things. Every time I'm going to give it different answers, I think everything asks, but one is like this: the doom and gloom kind of the feeling that you have, and a bunch of other people we talk to have. I don't know if we want to name names or whatever. Like, is this whole idea that the O&P as a professional, O&P as a craft, definitely, and as an independent profession of those people doing it, like by themselves as their own, like Johnson O&P stuff, is under threat somehow. And that kind of gloom thing is, for me, that's something I mull over. I think about that a lot. I think, is it true? Is it real? Is it difficult? It seems like it's much more difficult to make money and stuff like this.
Well, and so, that's an interesting point. And I think it's just a difficult time because the pay sources, the insurance companies, make it so difficult to get paid. And so one of the things is these, if I have a patient that comes in and needs a prosthesis, I don't get paid till I deliver said prosthesis. And I have to not only invest time, energy, but also I am buying components for that prosthesis. I've gotten the authorization for the prosthesis. I deliver it and I bill the insurance company. And 30 days later, the insurance company says, you know what? I know we authorized it, but we're not going to pay you because you did not do whatever. And so then you tie up your office staff and such to kind of fight those claims. Now, one interesting thing about that is you're going to get your money when you fight. And so I think some people are just tired of putting up the fight. But I also think that there's an interesting model out there too that is potentially like a cash pay style model where people have these incredible deductibles, which means that their insurance just won't kick in until they pay a certain amount. A lot of times a prosthesis can be less than that. And so some people may not even want to use their insurance. And so I think that might be an interesting thing that is untapped, but there's not a lot of people jumping out there to do that because it would have to be a completely separate business, completely autonomous from any insurance company. Like our company.
Well, you couldn't do it? You couldn't just also do that on the side or something? Or?
Yeah, so I think you could do it on the side, but I think that there's also some caveats to that. But it's something that I'm very interested in because this is crazy, and I think you've mentioned it before. You go on eBay, Craigslist, or whatever, and somebody's had a grandfather that's passed away that has a very expensive computerized knee, and you're walking around on a mechanical knee, and you're like, okay, so instead of paying $25,000 for that, I can get the grandpa that passed away that's almost a brand new knee for $3,000 and go to my prosthetist, and he can put it together. and I have this amazing new prosthesis at a lower cost. Well, that is not the norm here. But I think as the financial stuff, everything starts to tighten, I think there is an opportunity for some of that. And then when you add 3D printing on top of that, I think there's an amazing opportunity.
Yeah. No, I think that's interesting. I think that's an interesting thing. And just generally this kind of more of this innovation in maybe not even like the component level or the design, but also this business model level innovation stuff. That's the second thing. Apart from the doom and gloom thing, I'm like, I think we are at a seminal moment for OMP. And I think going in and we're kind of like, yeah, we're that was our original premise. We like talking to each other essentially. And we were like, where's this digitization thing gonna take us? Where are we going with this?
Yeah.
But what I also didn't appreciate at the beginning, and now I'm seeing a lot more of, is that there's so much happening from just an M&A and reshaping these businesses, these consolidating companies moving in, that this business is going to, be really different 20 years from now. It's going to be crazy, crazy different.
Yep.
And we don't know yet what, which keeps me learning, and I really am always curious about guests and asking their opinion, because I don't think anyone really knows. Is it going to be this McDonald's kind of thing, or is it going to be, is it going to be like some hipster thing, like handmade prostheses? Are you going to get more branding by the local guys and more, I don't know. I still don't understand.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think some of that stuff, like the word of mouth and the branding aspect of things, is a very real thing in the orthotic and prosthetic. I mean, you kind of have these, for lack of a better term, celebrity prosthetists, right? That a lot of people flock to them, whether they specialize in people that are missing 2 legs, or athletic stuff, or somebody that specializes in back braces, those sorts of things. And the social media world has opened all of that up to everybody in the world. There's literally people flying in from all over the world to specific clinicians to get their kid treated in this way, or their athletic prosthesis from this particular guy because they saw something on Facebook that said that they were the best. And so I think that's interesting, but I also think it's an opportunity for local prosthetists to kind of double down and say, hey, listen, the real change happens in the local market. You need to have access. People are living and breathing and that sort of thing, and you need to have access to local care so you can keep on going. So what happens if you get back to the Middle East and you just went to some guy, in the Midwest, and your leg is hurting a little bit? You're stuck. Yeah, what do you do? And so I think that, but on the same side of things, this is where some of the new materials coming in. We've talked about lattice structures and TPU and that sort of thing, where you add this layer of dynamic cushioning and that sort of thing together, and then potentially you might not have that same issue. So I think we're also at a crux on the design side of things and on the material side of things, where long term we might be able to make these prostheses more comfortable than they've ever been.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be wonderful. I think, and the other thing is just like how much, how many different technologies there are that really could have a really big impact. Microelectronics, soft robotics, like there's so many new things coming out that could have a huge impact, either being competitive to or being harnessed by the OMP community. So I think that's the third thing I think I would point to at the moment that really fascinates me, is just like, what other technologies are really going to, smaller motors or better battery packs that are safer, what other things are really going to play a role in the future. This kind of like, we talk to people on the podcast all the time that started with like these wood things and they went to carbon fiber, now 3D printing, but it has been kind of very artisanal and not very much microelectronics, sensors, motor driven until very recently.
Yeah. Well, and I'm really proud of you, Joris, for not mentioning vase mode and FDM.
That's good, dude. So who do we want to give thanks? I think we want to give thanks. Look at the innovators.
Yep.
I think the OMP community as a general. I think this is a bit soppy of us, maybe. But I think it's a wonderful community, dude. I've been like surprised at how many everybody's crazy stories and how hard everybody works, and how committed people are, and how this for so many people is much more than just like a job. We've
Yeah.
talked to so many people where this is like they go way above and beyond for. And I didn't know that, dude. I just thought this was like a business, like accountant or something. I didn't know how passionate you guys were. So I think we're thankful for that as well. And we're thankful for all of our guests, obviously. I didn't know we would do it this long. I don't think you did either. We wanted to, but like I didn't. Yeah, I'm thankful, that, especially the people in the beginning. When we were just like, yeah, we want to talk to you for a podcast. We don't even have a website. Especially like now it's like established, and people are like recommending us and all this, and people are getting like sales leads and new business relationships because of the being on the podcast. But I think in the beginning and the first 10, 20 guests like really took a leap here. So I'm especially grateful for them, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think to tie into that, thankful for the people that are listeners for sure, but then that have reached out to companies like Filament Innovations or Comb Scanning, and some of the Coyote Design, all these other kind of small companies. So they've heard about it and they're like, hey, we're going to reach out to those guests and potentially give them business. I think that's really neat. And I think there's a lot to be thankful for that and those connections that they might not have otherwise had other than through the podcast.
Yep. Totally, dude. Totally.
So,
and what else? I think that's it. That's it for me. I think those are the things that I'm really happy with, like with regards to OMP and the community and stuff. I think that really makes me very happy, and I think I'm really happy we do this, and it's a high point of my week every week, like talking to you and finding out that we have a guest and learning about that guest, and I think it's wonderful. I hope we can do it for a very, very long time.
Yeah, well, we're scheduled for a little while longer, and we've got plenty of people in there. So yeah, I'm really excited about where we're going to go next. We've definitely done some work as far as cleaning up audio quality. We've got some thumbnail stuff with some people, so that's been kind of fun, and just kind of making it to where it's very easy to grab. And so here's the other thing that I'm thankful for is people that are not in the O&P industry that listen. Yeah, that is very cool. Yeah, so there's people that they're interested in the medical side of things, or they may be looking to push in to our field because they have a technology or scanner or what have you, and they just want to know a little bit about it. And that's been really neat. So
cool.
But I think that's it for today. Yours. Thanks for coming
and thank
on.
You for you, and thank you for you and everything you do, Brent, as well, and thank you for your friendship as well.
Yes. Well, this is good. And next year, did you already tell your girlfriend you're coming to the U.S.?
I have not.
And we're doing Thanksgiving here in the U.S.
Okay, I'm gonna try and sell that. I'm gonna try and sell that to her. All right. Hey, thank you so much, dude, and thank you for anyone who's listening as well. And happy Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much.
Happy Thanksgiving, all. Take care. Bye.